Okay, guys, let's do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Rokoko webinar. Excited to see you all. We are going to let people trickle in for about 5 minutes, just because, that's the way it goes with a webinar. But yeah, we're really excited to have a chat with Deepak Chetty, who's on screen right here.
Hey, everybody.
Howdy. And I'll just cover some things, which I'll go over again in about 5 minutes when we start for real. But if you guys have questions during the webinar, there's a little Q&A panel that you can click on. You can submit your question. And we have Nicholas and David from Rokoko in Denmark helping us out and modding a little bit. And again, I'm going to go through all this in a moment, but kind of the run of show will be that I'll do a brief little intro into what Rokoko is, Rokoko motion capture, in case you don't know. Got my suit on. Then we're going to chat with Deepak about all of his experiences and teaching, but also just kind of, being out there in the real world of CG and what that's like. And then we'll do a little questions at the end. And we'll do a demo for anyone who wants to stick around for that in Unreal with some metahumans. So yeah, that's gonna be it. And again, I'm gonna probably repeat myself in about 5 minutes, but we're gonna wait for people to trickle in. Deepak, I know we were just chatting off, but yeah, yes. It is nice to meet you.
Yes, it's very nice to meet you, Sam. It's been a while. I think we've been on a couple email chains before together.
Yep.
But it's really wonderful to be here to talk to y'all today and to talk to everybody who's attending. Super excited to talk about this stuff because I could talk about it for ages.
I know. I always like that too, when I get someone who's who's willing to nerd out with me pretty extremely, and is not like getting glassy eyed like my friends. I'm like, let's talk about mocap. Yeah, and you're in Austin right now,
yes.
right?
Yeah, I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I've been here for the last 12 years. Ended up coming out here for grad school at UT Austin on the film program. And that's sort of where this journey started for me in regards to emergent technologies and democratized high-end technologies in service of narrative and storytelling.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been a good 12 years here. So I've definitely seen, at least in this part of North America, the technology shift affect all aspects of the industry. Including mocap and democratized mocap solutions, not only in academia, but in practice in the real world.
And I always think that's good too. And by the way, if somebody wants to write in the Q&A, we just want to test it. So somebody submit a little hello and you'll get a response. But yeah, it's so good to pair education with real world experience and someone who's like working right now or has been working in the last few years. Absolutely. I find because like you said, last 10, 12 years have been changing and evolving constantly.
So fast.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's bananas. The fact that I'm even wearing a mocap suit right now is crazy,
Cool. Well, I mean, do you want me to start and give a little bit of background on myself in terms of where I came from and sort of
well, I'm going to do my spiel again and then and then we'll get into it because cool. People have been trickling in, and if more come, then they can join. But yeah, so welcome everybody to this Rokoko webinar with a particular focus on education. And we're going to be speaking with Deepak Chetty, who's here, professor at the University of Texas at Austin, who's been using the tools in an actual classroom environment, as well as teaching online with Epic through the Epic portal and through their whole system. For the run of show today, as I said, while people were trickling in, I'm just going to give a very brief, I promise, overview of what Rokoko is, what we make, what our goal is, just for a couple minutes. And then we're going to get into an interview with Deepak for 40 minutes-ish, 40, 50 minutes, depending on how many tangents we go down. And then all through it, you can ask questions in the Q&A panel. And we have moderators who's going to be looking through those. And so we'll be answering questions at the end if there's time. And we'll keep reminding you. And if you want to also, this is going to be on video on demand on YouTube later. So we're going to have all the links to Deepak's website and more information you can find on stuff. And yeah, so let me just go through a very brief again. I promise brief little chat about what we do at Rokoko. So we are and I'm actually gonna share my screen. I have a tiny little presentation, which again, I promise is very short. So we, and hopefully that's coming up, but yeah, we are a motion capture company, and we make motion capture hardware and software. I'm currently wearing our motion capture suit. I got some mocap gloves that we're going to be playing with in a moment. And our goal with our motion capture is democratizing motion capture. So that means it's making motion capture kind of accessible, especially to indie creators, people like students, people who have maybe a more limited budget, but still need really high quality custom mocap, right? And so we make a suit, we make gloves, we have a facial motion capture solution. We also have a large part of our company that's focused on our software, because so much of mocap is going in and cleaning, and we wanted to make that as easy as possible. So we have a Rokoko Studio software that kind of makes it idiot proof. And I say that like as a CG idiot, that I think we all are, as possible. And so you can clean up, feet filters and drift and things like that. In terms of the actual suit itself, there's two types of motion capture. You have volume motion capture, for those of you who are new to this niche, which is with cameras. It's kind of what you see on the Marvel movies, where the classic Gollum dots all over the body, which is very expensive traditionally and very difficult to use relatively. And then you have inertial motion capture, and that is like a suit that you'll wear, and we have sensors distributed throughout the suit that have little accelerometers in there, and it basically records all your body rotations, and it transmits that data over Wi-Fi to your computer. And it makes for a very inexpensive but reliable way to record motion capture. That means that you don't have to invest, $50,000 into your setup. The problem we generally try to solve is the animation problem, which is just that animation is one of the most specialized things in CG. And Deepak, I'm curious if you agree with that, but it's something that takes years and years of hard work. And usually people who are not animators, it's not something you can do overnight. Maybe you can get some textures online, maybe you can find a modeling tutorial, but animation is persistently difficult. And so we try to make that easy for everyone. As I said, we're an inertial motion capture system. What makes us unique, ease of use. We have a durable suit that you can remove the sensors and you can clean the suit, and so you can share it among a team. And then we have a bunch of software tools and integrations with Unreal and Unity, and yeah. So that's my little spiel. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Where is that? Okay, stop share. And yeah, now we're just going to get into Deepak, and sorry for taking up the first bit, but it's good to have you.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you. Like I said, so happy to be here. A large part of what drives my motivation to wake up every morning is being able to talk about this stuff and share it with people. So this is definitely, as far as my life is concerned, one of the huge pursuits that I've had is really getting the word out towards the democratization of all this technology and how it can be used specifically to teach people, especially at film schools, because that's sort of my experience.
Yeah. And do you want to start with, who are you, what's your occupation, where are you at, and even where you're located, kind of start there.
Absolutely. So my name is Deepak Chetty. I'm an assistant professor in practice at UT Austin. Been there since 2015. Mainly have been teaching motion capture and virtual production techniques. And I'll put it this way: I've been teaching these techniques, real-time filmmaking using Unreal Engine, since around 2015 as well. So it's predated a lot of the interest that has come into this technology over the last couple of years, obviously heralded by The Mandalorian and other projects like that. But I was fortunate enough to be tasked with an opportunity and a sort of a mission objective to start using real-time technology to teach filmmakers. So one thing that I'd like to make pretty clear in terms of the uniqueness of my position at UT is I'm not teaching VFX students and I'm not teaching animation students. I'm teaching people who are getting trained in traditional filmmaking as their background and as their focus. And I started teaching in 2015. My background is in practical filmmaking. So the beginning of my career, which started around 2006, 2007, I just graduated from Pratt Institute in New York, which is a very hardcore art school. I got my undergrad film degree there. I immediately went into camera and visual effects. And I did that, I loved camera. My goal, when I was much younger was I always wanted to be a cinematographer. That slowly shifted as I realized how much I like to be involved in a more direct way of storytelling. So I started directing things. But I always had a love for the camera and the frame and practical filmmaking. I got interested in visual effects out of necessity when I graduated in 2007 in New York. It was really hard to find well-paying camera positions, and I did not want to work my way through the camera department for years and years and years. I just wanted to get my hands dirty a little bit quicker. So I just sort of fell into VFX. I'd always been a fan of visual effects heavy films, the generation that grew up on Jurassic Park and stuff like that and The Matrix. But I never really thought that that's what I would be doing. So I found myself in an interesting position where even super early on in my career, before I went to grad school, I was trying to figure out as a filmmaker the latest technologies that were becoming democratized, so my ambition could be a little bit higher in terms of the stuff I was making on my own, of course without studio support and financial backing, sort of the stuff I was
run and gun
bootstrapping. Absolutely.
Indie, do it all yourself style, right?
And so that really led me to start self-teaching myself in a lot of software. So in the mid 2000s, I started learning the Autodesk suite. I got really into After Effects. Unfortunately, never got too deep into Nuke or anything like that, but After Effects was my bread and butter for a really long time. Like I said, the Autodesk suite. So I was a generalist. I think it's fair to say that a lot of my professional VFX work has been compositing. But I've done a lot of environment work, layout, stuff like that, especially on my own projects. Around 2010, this is post Avatar, the boom for the new wave of technology with stereoscopic had really entered full force. We were starting to see things becoming a little bit more democratized in terms of pipelines. We still had really expensive softwares, but the hardware was starting to become a little bit more even across the board with the proliferation and ease of gaming PC creation and stuff like that. So I decided I was going to go back to grad school. So that was 2010. And I promise this is all leading towards what we're going to talk about.
No, I think it's like there's no linear path, and sometimes you get by students. I think that's the question, right? It's like if I do X, well, how do I get to Y? And 100%. In VFX, this is the way it goes. So I think that's
there's no set path. No. Everyone I know who's in this industry has come to it from a different background. Absolutely. In many cases, they haven't even gone to school. I know a lot of architects lately who have switched over.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But I decided around 2010 I was going to go back to school because I was just doing corporate work. I was doing my own stuff. Did a couple of things for television where I was a motion graphics guy or something like that, and I would do B-cam for really weird shoots in New York City.
Good stories, I'm sure.
A lot of random stuff. Yeah. So I was like, I need to go back. I want to nail it down. Avatar had just come out. I got super inspired again by technology and obviously this huge budget, but just the fact that like these new tools are starting to get used. I remember watching behind the scenes stuff for that film showing Cameron, walking around, not even with a real camera, but just with, an approximate, exactly, some sort of handles moving through that were being tracked. You could see on the side the low res sort of previs live real time that they were getting for that. And I just sort of blew my mind. I knew these techniques were around. Virtual production on a whole as a blanket statement or an idea is not brand new. It's been around for a really long time. It owes a lot to previous techniques back to rear projection and matte paintings. But the general idea, though, is, that it's becoming popular again because it's become democratized. When I went back to grad school, that was my focus. I was like, I want to combine technology and filmmaking. So every single project that I'm going to do while I'm here for 3 years at UT as a grad student is going to involve the best technology I can get my hands on and teach myself.
Right.
So to that end, my thesis film there, which led me directly into what I'm doing now, was a project called Hard Reset. It's a 40-minute long pilot that was optioned. So, it had some amount of success. It's on Dust, that YouTube channel for sci-fi films, if you've ever heard of that.
Oh, definitely. I think
where it's sitting nice with a little over 1.2 million views, which is really cool. I never thought anybody would watch this movie. But if you go check that out, you sort of see where my interests as a filmmaker lie. Big picture world building storytelling with, really, intimate character portraits, interspersed throughout. But the VFX and the technology, I try to hope that the goal is that they support the storytelling. They don't overshadow it. They don't overwhelm it. So I really started getting into this idea of like, what can I do as an individual or as a small team I did have a group of 3 people who helped me out, or 4 people that helped me out with a couple of the VFX assets for that short. But in general, if you ever go watch it, and hopefully we'll be able to provide the link for it.
Oh yeah.
I spent 9 months on my own doing all the VFX. And the biggest takeaway from that, and this is why I'm talking about that project, is I never wanted to do that again. I was like, I'm never putting myself in that position again. There were sleepless weeks.
Yeah.
If I actually have a render log on that film, and it's not only, it's 300 something, almost 400 VFX shots, all offline rendered. So many of those things right now I could do in real time in Unreal.
Right.
And it took 6 weeks on a single machine to render that film, all 40 minutes out. And that's successfully render it. Like, so that doesn't include all the crashes that I had.
Right. All the misskipped frames.
Heartbreak. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually became an insomniac, like by habit, because I would be so afraid to go to bed at night because I would think like the moment I go to sleep, it's going to crash 2 minutes later and the whole night's wasted. So I got unhealthy. Like, I mean, it really was a bad thing. So my immediate takeaway after that project, when I started getting into academia and I started doing freelance and I started going out as a filmmaker even, was like, how can I tell these sort of stories, these fantastical things? And obviously VP is not only used just for that, and mocap is not just used for genre stuff. You can use it for anything, but that was sort of my wheelhouse. So that was the big question. How can I do this at scale? What is the newer technologies that are becoming democratized? And that's how I settled on real time. So I've been a big gamer my whole life. I've always, it's been books, films, and games consistently from as long as I can remember. Just a steady diet of that is influenced.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
In many ways, I'm sure there's most of us on the Zoom right now are in the same position. So I just checked out Unreal. I'd seen a demo of it. This is before it was free as well. So the first time I used it, I think we had to pay like a pretty high fee to get the software. And I was like, you know what? I don't know how to program. I'm coming purely from a practical film background, but the visual scripting made me feel comfortable. I remember the first week or 2 of using the software, there wasn't that much learning material around back then. So I sort of had to cobble together like 20 different YouTube videos to sort of teach myself what I needed to learn to start getting some frames up. But after I had spent about 2 months with it, I went to the university. I was like, we got to start teaching this. I mean, this is crazy. Like, the level of quality that our students can put out anyways with Maya or Autodesk, offline stuff within a semester, I always had a problem with it because students could put out, and obviously this is a very subjective interpretation of an educational curriculum because I'm filtering it through what I was dealing with at UT, not only as a grad student, but then becoming a faculty member, is I noticed, and this isn't a bad thing. I don't want to disparage anybody that came before me, but a lot of focus was spent on making shots, right? Literally shots. So students would develop the look, the feel, the mechanics, all that sort of stuff. They do all the research. And the end result at the end of the semester was literally just a shot.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah. You're working on one shot. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. The whole time. And in a traditional film program, I don't think that's useful. Just frankly, I just don't think there's any use for that because because I'm not talking shot. You can do a oneer and it can be 30 seconds long, 15 seconds long, and still have an arc and still have a story. These were like tech demos. There was no narrative in many of these things. And to me, that was a huge missed opportunity. So I started digging into it and I was like, why aren't we doing shorts? Like, why aren't these students making minute-long shorts, 30-second shorts, 45-second shorts, even a commercial length shorts, like little, even if it's a gimmick, you're giving me a point A to point B. I feel like I'm going on a journey. I'm understanding how storytelling is being enhanced by these tools. I just wasn't seeing it. And I mean, at the end of the day, after talking to other professors, students about it, because I was teaching Maya at first in my classes and Unity too, as well. I was just like, you know what? Like, I think it's the software. I think that's what it boils down to is like, there's so many intricacies. If I'm teaching somebody Maya, opposed to me teaching them Unreal Engine, I mean, it's about week 8 before we really start getting into filmmaking. Like we can do.
Let's get into this shelf
frames.
Tool
exactly
for a little while.
Exactly, and there's nothing. I have no issue with it, but for teaching people filmmaking opposed to visual effects, I want to be in one piece of software as much as I can. And so making that transition into real time in Unreal was like revelatory for me because then all of a sudden my final assignments for classes were films. Like I'm like, you're not doing a tech demo. You're not doing a demonstration. You are making a movie. And you need to then, as a filmmaker, think about what goes into making a film inside of a computer with potentially a motion capture component.
Right.
And that's sort of how I've conceptualized this whole thing, because for me, especially teaching filmmakers, and the reason I'm making that distinction is I'm not saying that people who study visual effects or anything like that are not taught to understand story. I definitely don't want to say that. But what I am saying is that at different programs, you have a higher emphasis on the narrative, right?
Yeah.
So when somebody takes a class like mine, the expectation is that knowledge is going to be filtered through the technology with an end result where the technology supports the narrative in the story, right?
Well,
so that was the initial angle.
Yeah. I mean, I think the industry has been changing so much too, right?
Sure.
Because as painful as your experience sounded making that film by yourself,
right.
You were just at the right kind of sweet spot that you were able to make it by yourself. And
absolutely
10 years ago, there's no generalist, it's like you study VFX, you're going to go into the studio pipeline.
You're in your track, you're in your lane.
Yeah. Because you're going to work on one shot for a month and then you're going to hand it off to the whatever. And that still is a thing, right? But now we have I think all the exciting stuff is like what you're talking about. You can give a student, don't just think about the shot, think about, you can do it all in the 6 months that we have. Do the texturing, do a little bit of everything, and then it's going to look awesome. And it's free. The school doesn't have to spend 50 grand a license on, whatever. And so maybe you could speak a little bit like more about, so what is just the CG program like at University of Texas? Like, so is it? Yeah.
So right now there's not a specific track for, virtual production or anything like that. We have a very, traditional program that's, once again, story first, old school filmmaking, but we have these upper division classes, and what we're slowly rolling out to sophomores and people, first or second year, more survey level classes where they get to just get a general understanding. So there's no tracks per se, but what we have are different areas in this program. So a student could, for instance, take the first 2 years of traditional film classes and then decide when they're juniors and seniors, they just want to focus on technology, right? Cool. Or they want to focus on cinematography, or they want to focus on sound, or they want to focus on post-production in another realm, more like finishing, like color correction and stuff like that. So it's a very a la carte program at UT that we have. I think that's kind of nice because, sometimes I'll have students, I teach a total of 5 classes when I'm on full time there. I'll have a group of students, I'll have students that literally will take 3 semesters in a row with me. So it'll be really cool because you'll see them on board and develop their talents. Yeah. And
that's fun.
So it is pretty open-ended. I'm not sure how long the open-endedness will last, because I do know a lot of programs around the country are now starting to officially have virtual production departments or emergent cinematic arts departments. So who knows? I mean, maybe it'll be in the cards where we'll lock it down a little bit more, make it a little bit more formal. Maybe there, in the future, there'll be a major or minor that's in the cards, but right now it's just rolled into our traditional filmmaking curriculum, and I do think it's a strength.
That's interesting. Yeah,
we're getting like I said, we're getting films made with performances using all this hardware that even 3-4 years ago, the likelihood of us doing that, even though we have a Vicon system, that's something I'll talk about too, the comparison there as an educator was really low. It was really difficult to sort of imagine this level of access for our students.
Yeah. And so, I mean, let's chat a little mocap. So you've been using a Rokoko suit, right, system, and I think you have one that you personally use, and then you use one with you use it with the students.
Used a couple with the students. I've had a personal suit for a couple years now. So I was an early adopter, if you will, of the technology. So I was very impressed from the get-go. Like my thing as an educator is, the tool is just as good as the person wielding it in many ways. So, at UT, we do have a Vicon system, with 16 Bonita cameras set up in a nice grid.
Yeah.
And we do shoots on that, certain shoots we'll do on that. But my personal preference is using the inertial based systems, because way less setup and calibration. We don't have to check out a room. We can do it really anywhere as long as we have minimal interference. And quite frankly, I don't teach the Vicon hardware to my students, because we still use Blade and stuff like that.
And that's the whole thing. I mean, that's the whole, you could have a whole career based on maintaining Vicon systems, and that there is that specialty, because they are used
that are interested in that. We have a position for them called an undergrad learning assistant or lab assistant. I will tell them to apply for that position, and then they can run the mocap system.
Get ready to deal with some fun issues. But I mean, it's an amazing
normal curriculum. We don't teach that. Yeah.
Right.
But with the Rokoko suit, like, I will definitely be using it sometime soon with some classes and some workshops. Like, I have full confidence that I can show up, lay it out, show them a 5-minute video,
Right.
and then they're pretty much good to go to start capturing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest hurdles before is, especially when you're working with younger filmmakers or you're explaining this to pre-existing industry professionals, is they want to know things like, how much time is this going to take to set up? How often does this suit fail? Or like, how often does this technology need to be rebooted? How long does it take? I mean, how much time are we going to lose if the tracking goes off and we have to go back and recalibrate? And, the truth is that's completely variable. There's so many environmental factors that dictate that. But ultimately, here's the deal is, when I talk to directors about directing performance, when I talk to the students about directing the performance, I'm like, look, go in there. If you want, use a witness cam, frame it up wide. I mean, get as much as you need. Don't worry about the digital camera. Don't worry about the virtual camera. Literally just focus on your performance.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can do that. And so once again, what's kind of nice about teaching in a traditional film program is we're sort of then able to break out filmmaking into its component parts. Right. We will say, like, in pre-pro, let's figure out the environment. Let's pre-light stuff. Let's figure out our blocking. We'll just do rough blocking. We'll get an idea of, how this is going to work when we get to set. But here, when we get to set, we might pop it in. If you have in-camera VFX, you want to do a hybrid, just look-see to see a really rough comp, you can get that set up with very little money. I mean, you could use a Vive to track a camera, and you could just use a Blackmagic shuttle to get the feed going through to do a really quick comp in OBS or something. But the idea is, like, then we feel comfortable at that, and then we just explore. Right.
Yeah.
So the moment we're doing the performance, we're just focusing literally on the motion.
Yeah.
If we're doing facial performance capture synchronously, we'll make sure we're focusing on both those things. We don't always do that synchronously. We usually do it separately and with our setup. But the idea is, we're treating this with the same respect we would a practical shoot. The goal for the director is to focus on the performance. If the director is also a heavily visual person, well, sure, they can go in with a virtual camera. They can, move stuff around. But ultimately, what's so cool is we're able to do this at scale at a public university.
Yes.
And that was 100% not possible, at least when I was a student in the early 2000s, even at a private school. We did not have those capabilities. Computing power just wasn't there. Right. The actual hardware was not there.
Insurance, if you do have it,
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, none of that stuff was there. And so, I do think I have a little bit of a unique perspective, maybe more regionally, because I know traditional programs on the East and West Coast, and of course worldwide, are also integrating this stuff. And some may have been doing it as long as I've been doing it, if not longer. I just haven't met too many people, honestly, that have been using Unreal that long in a university for this purpose. But what I hear from most people, and what's very encouraging about it, and very specific to mocap, I'm going to say this statement with your technology and similar technologies, is that it has opened the door for the students,
right,
the people who are learning, to engage with narrative again in ways that they weren't necessarily doing before. And one critical example I'll give you is the skill of animation. So if you are a traditional animator, 2D, 3D, you're using your hands, stop motion, you're using a keyboard and mouse, Wacom tablet, whatever you want to say, whatever input device. That is a whole skill in of itself that I will 100% agree with, has to be cultivated. There is some level of just innate talent that you have to have. I have had very hard conversations with people before where they've just been like, I just can't do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I would agree. I would focus on something else.
Right.
Because I definitely do not believe in giving people false hope for skills like that. Right.
I always say that there's like two types of VFX artists or CG. There's like those that can draw and like those that can't draw. Like I'm a can't draw, can't animate, like, and then some people are just, that's what they just know, and they can feel sight lines.
They have that intuition.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's subconscious for them, and
it's difficult
they really
to
get
teach that. And drawing too, I think it's like that's years of practice usually of
and then every now and then someone will slip through the cracks and you're like, how long have you been doing this? We're like, since Wednesday. And you're like, Jesus Christ, okay, that's incredible.
That's frustrating.
Like, I mean, so those people do exist. They're one in a million, but they are out there. So that might be some of you on this call. But I think what is important about it though is, in the past, I'm going to use myself as an example, and my friends, my colleagues that are in school around the same time as me, we'd want to do something CGI. We would have seen like Final Fantasy Spirits Within or something when we were in high school, and we would be like, "Oh my god!" I mean, some people rag on that movie, but I still think it's incredible.
I saw it when it was
blew
cool.
my mind.
Yeah, it was like good looking.
It blew my
and
mind.
then
Yeah.
20 years later,
And you look at it now, and the art direction is still fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, but the raw rendering, you're like, whoa, I see that now all over the place, and it's not expensive. It's actually expected that things will look that good.
Yeah,
right? And you just think about
that's the base.
how much we've progressed, right? And you track that along with game development and graphics and games and interactive. These are all going towards real time. But the one crucial thing that was missing for people like me in the early 2000s, even if I had the skill and the resources to do really nice environments, do virtual camera work that was, accurate to my eye at least, is that always the performance was the issue. So people like me used to really get stuck making environmental pieces, abstract pieces, or pieces that took place in an environment without characters. I would just go fly through and make, like, that Quixel piece that was released years ago that really showcased is the Rebirth piece, whereas the speeder sort of going through the beautiful landscape, and you're like, oh, there's no humans in this piece. Is showcasing this pre-meta humans and stuff. But it's like a lot of people would be making environmental pieces like that with hard surface animation.
It's a chessboard.
Absolutely. So it's like I could never. I'm sort of with you. I suppose it's like character animation. I was like, I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah,
because I just I know that's a whole thing. If I need it in any of my projects, I will bite the bullet. I will figure out how to raise money, and I will hire somebody.
Yeah, right.
For that, because it's just a whole process. Like, I didn't know rigging. I didn't know any of that stuff. I could do hard surface because I think it's maybe just a little bit conceptually even easier to understand. Because there's not. I mean,
there's not organic forms and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
But the moment I first was able to use motion capture, which was 2013, like, in one of my own projects, like, I just did a test, and I was like, oh my god, like, all of a sudden, this is now 9 years ago, but all of a sudden I was like, now I can do whatever I want. Like, literally, this is still pre-Unreal, so I was still doing offline, but I was like, I can actually get a performance in. And furthermore, for me, somebody who's used to directing live action, I was like, oh, I get to work with somebody again too. Like, I get to work with the performer. Because when you're doing traditional animation, once again, there's a lot of schools of thought on this, but I've always felt that the animator is the performer with the capital P, right? Even if they're using reference of somebody else, it's their input that is driving the performance, right? Even if you have, scripting on top of it or something, they're still in control of that. With mocap, the platonic ideal of this whole setup is I want to translate the real performance as much as I can into my, my environment or my virtual world, or, any piece of content that I'm creating in this 3D. And until it was democratized, I think that was just out of reach for most of us. So immediately in this CG realm, 99% of people were sort of boxed out of creating anything with a real performance, and thereby potentially, not to say that you need humanoid figures to tell a story, but most of us want to tell stories of people. Not all of us are making, abstractions or things like Wall-E or whatever. But it's like, that all of a sudden opened those doors. So we're able to do it. And, furthermore, inserting that into abstracting the process into a university curriculum for a film program, and telling the film students, many of whom want to be directors, DPs, producers, and writers, like, hey, I want to expose you to this technology. I don't want you to worry about how to set up the Vicon system.
Yeah.
Right. I just want you to take this suit. I want you to get in it. We'll talk about the basics, but just go watch some YouTube videos. Like, I mean, I can be as flippant about it as that. And I'm not coming off as an asshole who doesn't care, because I'm like, it is that easy. Like, I'm trying to diminish the intimidation that comes along with a lot of these technologies.
This is accessible for you. It is. Yeah. This is something you can 100%. Start to think that you can use in whatever you're working on. Yeah,
absolutely. Just making that clear is the number one thing. So in pairing, let's say, the Rokoko hardware software platform with something like Unreal, what I'll do is I'll actually, as an educator, I'll offload a lot of the basic learning into the video material that already exists.
Right. Yeah.
So my role at Epic as a producer for Unreal Online Learning, some of you who are watching this might have before, or in the future might take some of the classes that I've produced, like the independent filmmaking course, the MetaHumans courses, stuff like that. The goal is just like, what is the bare minimum that people need to understand conceptually and technically to start creating, right? And to realize that the barrier is so low.
Yeah.
And I can say without any reservation, before the inertial suits started coming out, there was that barrier, and that barrier was legitimate, right? It was a legitimate barrier that was really keeping people who are otherwise incredibly talented, but they had this blind spot or this hole in terms of their skill set, which, like I said, most people have. Most people are not character animators. There's an innate level of skill you have to do that. All of a sudden, I feel like it's leveled the playing field. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so can you talk about like, what, I guess, how students have interacted with like the suits,
Sure.
and like, how does that process go? And I know, like for me, whenever I put someone in a suit, it's like dancing, karate. It's really fun to do too. So I don't know if there's anything in particular that stood out about a project or whatever with a student, and how they've used the tech.
Well, what's really fascinating to me is we just have, on the Vicon station, we only do one performer at a time, whether using Rokoko or Vicon. And so a lot of students, to challenge themselves, will do scenes with multiple people, multiple characters, right? And they, because I tell them, I'm like, look, just because we have one suit doesn't mean you have to just do one character. Right. We could just time it out. You could have somebody, reading the lines opposite you. And then we just, we reset, flip it. There's no flipping of a camera. It's just like, we just reset.
Flip that character.
Buzz again. Exactly. Start again. So I've seen a lot of really ambitious multi-character projects, which I honestly would not have expected at first. And that's something that really surprised me. But then, like I said, I think it depends on who you're teaching. Like I'm teaching people who are not used to making a film or a story with just a single character. So their immediate inclination as problem solvers is going to be like, all right, we just got one suit. How are we going to make this work? Right. And those have been some of the most enlightening and fruitful discussions that we've had, because we've had to approach it from a really high level standpoint of not only the story, because we talk about things like editing stuff beforehand, where it's like, all right, if we have this sort of planned out in our head, not even just a shot list, because with Unreal, we do previs. I encourage the students to do previs. They'll beat out their entire film with just static models.
Whole story. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll do the whole thing before they go in to capture the performance. So it really forces us to, be resourceful and sort of figure out on a very granular level the base level of the creative that's going into this. Because it's not to say that you can't get in the volume and decide all of a sudden we're going to change some things, or you can't put the suit on, say like, I'd rather do this than that. But having all this stuff work together so nicely in the Unreal ecosystem, or the Unity, whatever program you're using that will accept all this stuff in real time, being a huge key here. It's so incredible because you just see it all working at once. And what's cool about this, opposed to practical filmmaking, which I love, I mean, I'll never stop loving practical filmmaking, but it's like, it's a non-destructive process.
Totally.
And that's what's so cool. And that honestly is the thing that takes, I think, some of the students, it's the thing that takes the longest to sort of wrap their head around, is like, I tell them like, look, like, this is why I'm telling you just to focus on the performance, because your camera can literally go anywhere, anywhere you want it. So just don't even think about that. Focus on the performance right now. I mean, if you're super, you consider yourself a visual auteur or something, like that's what you want to develop. I'm not going to tell you not to go in and, try to frame stuff up as it's happening. But the beauty of this process too, is that, everything is changeable at any given moment. It's a double-edged sword for some people, because some people then just get into crazy feedback loops where they just want to tinker with every little thing. But if you bring the same level of discipline and resourcefulness you would to a traditional production, right, using, finite resources and finite amount of takes and finite amount of coverage opportunities, and you bring that into the virtual world with real time, I think, further it'll strengthen you, but you also feel way more empowered, because you'll be like, what, all I need to do to try something else is just save as, or just do another keyframe.
New project. And let's mess with this
and just iterate.
I think, and I just love that the way that you have approached teaching, because I think, it's also when you are working as a student, if you're working on a full project or something like that, there's so many things go wrong, and it's very much like the real world, and where you need to figure something out. And the closer it's, the industry can be like brutal, and as much as you can expose a student to that sort of side of like, hey, this is CG, like something's going to go wrong. Let's learn how to deal with that.
Murphy's Law is in full effect with any of this stuff.
And so we kind of have covered some of this stuff, but I still think certainly as an educator, if you're new to mocap, like one of the things that I'm always trying to do, you know, this is a Rokoko webinar, but I think there's tools for everything. So we never want to say like, I'm never saying like Vicon is bad, right? Vicon is like amazing. It's this amazing tool. But it's a different tool. And I think you were even saying that like some students can take the suits like home and they can work on projects like unsupervised, which again is like, I remember trying to, when I was in grad school, like asking, oh, do we have budget for this? They're like, no, we don't. And like, we don't have the personnel to like run this thing, and then a student's going to break it. And so I think maybe could you talk about like the freedom that having a more accessible, I mean, we already have kind of, but I know you were saying something about like,
the biggest proof here is like, I've had students who've graduated, then literally gone and bought a suit.
Right.
Like, you know, and to me, that's the proof, because these, you know, in a film school, especially, like I said, a traditional program, you'll have a lot of people who graduate, then they buy a camera. So they'll spend a decent amount of money on a prosumer or a cheaper, I would say, or a lower priced professional digital cinema camera,
which kind of sits
maybe
with
some lens.
A Rokoko, you know, it's
exactly.
Like little,
I mean, if you think, you know, I've taught a lot of students, like a lot of kids, I think, like I see this a lot. They'll graduate and they'll buy a Blackmagic Pocket,
right? Or like
6K.
an A7 or something.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
almost the exact same price as y'all's suit gloves. So it's, you know, and so I have started seeing more people, you know, not a lot, just because it still is, you know, expensive, but not as expensive.
It's still an investment, right?
But
absolutely,
I am seeing that, like, and to me that, and you know, I'm seeing people do some crazy work. I'm seeing production companies just buy one just to have it, you know, even if they don't even have anybody on staff that does that, like, you know, that specializes in that. They're like, you know what, we've seen enough fun abstract art pieces where, you know, it's usually the dance stuff with particles, where they're like, hey, we're going to do an art show on the east side of Austin. You know, want to put some of these pieces together. We just have this thing, we're going to rent it out, or they'll use it to rent out and stuff. So I think the fact that the accessibility is allowed for it to actually be considered a legitimate tool, and by legitimate, I don't mean because it's quality, obviously that's there. Legitimate in my definition here means it's realistic. Right.
Yeah.
It is possible. It's a possibility.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it is very conceptually easy to think like, okay, if I have a couple grand that I would have spent maybe, you know, on a camera or maybe a graphics card or something.
Right.
I could also just put that towards a mocap suit. And then all of a sudden, you know, here's the deal. To make films in a computer, I mean, if you want to do virtual production, I mean, at the minimum, because virtual production, once again, is the broad term. In-camera VFX is the thing I think most people are glomming on, which is the LED wall hybrid green
Mando style.
But that's a subcategory, right? Just like green screen photography would be, or rear projection would be a subcategory of normal projection or production. But what you're starting to see is like, all right, the subcategory, which is normally out of reach and more of a niche thing that you would get training on when you actually get into the industry and you get to work your way up, work on projects, those basic principles are now achievable at home. Right. So example would be, you know, you're wearing your suit right now. Let's say you just had a drop cloth green screen behind you,
which I do.
Nice. Good. And there you go. Nice and evenly lit. Right.
Yeah.
You have a Vive maybe to track your camera.
Right.
You know, with the Blackmagic, I forgot it's called the shuttle or whatever. It's the $89, you know, in that will go back in, bring your feed in. Right. So you don't need the super high end one, just the one with the HDMI, not the SDI even. Because this is a lo-fi setup, right? I'm talking like, you know, you're not doing full time code sync and stuff. So you're not going to do any crazy camera moves. You just want to get something set up, see something in action. You're going to spend less than $600 to get all that set up. I mean, outside of your computer. Yeah. You know, like to me, that's revolutionary. Like that just was not possible, like without 10 to 50 times that cost on whatever scale you were 2 to 3 years ago.
And then time and expertise too, and learning how to do those things by hand and building scripts that are going to do that all by yourself, instead of having something that now you can get you get the dongle and it's like set up, plug and play, and you just keep moving.
Well, I mean, to the other thing too, when we talk about the students' time and the resources and why this is practical. So in the past, pre-Rokoko, and you know, we haven't used it, you know, every semester by any means, because we just, you know, getting it recently, but even in the workshops I've done and stuff, it's like, how much time did I want in the past? And I know it's a good tool, but I also know it's kind of like the black sheep. They don't treat it as well. Like Motion Builder. I used to have to teach Motion Builder in my class to do animation cleanup and editing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love Motion Builder. I mean, I still use it for certain things. Like there's certain things that, you know, I can't do in Unreal still that I can do in Motion Builder.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But, you know, in general, it's like the process now that I've done with your software is I'll clean up some of the stuff, you know, in Studio, but then I'll just kick it over into Unreal because I'm doing MetaHuman work now. I'm doing everything to control rig.
Yeah.
I'll just kick it over there, do additive tracks and just fix it live almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so incredible. It's like with everyone's like, oh, foot sliding or like, you know, you move. It's like, it's so easy to fix that.
Yeah.
It's just like the moment you learn how to do it, you'll be like, oh, this isn't difficult at all. If I just, you know, spend like 45 minutes, like you can probably burn through all the takes you've done your whole shoot. Yeah. So when people use that as a comparison, they're like, oh, well, you know, this is why camera-based system is better. It's like, well, sure. I mean, objectively speaking, the data is more accurate, but it's also 25 times the cost in many cases.
Yeah.
Right?
The worry, 25 times the worry too, then, because it's like,
and the ultimate thing too, and I don't know if everyone does this, I don't want to speak for everyone, but no matter where it's coming from, I'm always cleaning it up. I'm always cleaning up my motion because I personally am not doing live stream stuff. Yeah. So like, I don't even know that workflow that well because I'm always doing rendered work. Yeah. Even if it's in a real-time environment, what I mean is like, I'm never distributing something or broadcasting something.
Yeah, you're bringing the asset in animated with the mocap on your character. And then
there will always be cleanup. So to me, the value for me is like, as an individual, I'm never going to spend that much money to buy an optical system. But what I will do is I will say like, you know what, to be able to just pop this suit on and just stand over there and get whatever motion
and do 50 takes
and do it by myself, right? You know, even, you know, like it's unparalleled because if I wanted to do that years ago, I would be spending 25 times the cost, or I would be outsourcing it. I'd be remotely directing it, or I'd be paying for a studio rental to go use somebody else's system, which by the way, in this town, at least one day on a stage is as much as me buying 2 suits.
Right. Yeah. So what's the point of that?
I mean, like, what's the point?
Yeah. And then you have infinite, you know, you got your time and you can go and do it in your own space. And there's just so many.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're getting, I want to check and see.
Sure. Yeah.
If we have some questions, because I want to make sure that okay, so we do have, is it possible to combine an inertial system with an optical to get a better result? I mean,
theoretically,
anything's possible. I think is how I usually answer things like that, because it's like, totally. I think that what I never want to do in VFX is give myself more work. So like that sounds like a situation where like you probably could.
I mean, we could put the 53 Vicon trackers
on a suit,
the passive trackers, and then mean the data or something.
Exactly, do an average or something.
Yeah.
So this is from LMU Munich. So I have no experience with Rokoko, but we'd be interested in using it for my postdoc projects. So I think that also just, I don't know what the question is there, but do students do like a thesis or anything at
so
UT?
We actually do. We do have an emergent thesis class where we have some students doing mocap for their final semester long films. But to the idea of cross-departmental or interdisciplinary work that's non-creative, maybe is analytical or representative or a way of, you know, showing data. I actually am working on a project at UT, which is kind of cool. It's using motion capture and performance to capture technology to help people with aphasia. So with a speech disability after a stroke, it's used to generate procedural training videos, which is really cool. So this technology is used in service of that. So it's actually a therapy tool. So so that has to do with embodiment, you know, we're talking about in XR because this is an XR app. So, you know, there's a lot of interesting alternate uses. I mean, one of the biggest uses, I'm sure one of the largest customers of this technology, at least for the camera-based systems, was sports medicine and stuff like that. Doing gait analysis, scientific studies of motion,
physiology.
Exactly. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there with embodiment, especially for psychology and VR. Putting people in separate shoes. I mean, obviously always the obstacle with that though is if you're not going to use machine learning to do camera-based tracking, which is obviously, I mean, in its infancy, there's some really good options out there. But just getting somebody into a suit, if it's not diegetic to the experience, it kind of takes you out of it, right? So there is that hurdle with that. But it's an interesting, thing that you all are doing there. But I mean, I have definitely seen this technology used for stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's also interesting, again, just like I just having thought back to how difficult it is to get funding. It's like, if you can use a system for maybe multiple things in a school, it's just anything that helps getting, because our goal is like, we just want more students to be using the system. And I think but it's hard to, schools don't have unlimited budgets, and you already you spend a bunch of money on computers, and now somebody comes and they're like, can we get a mocap system? But there are uses for it that are, and we're not even talking about gaming, we've been talking about cinematics.
I know, we've been talking about film the whole time, but everything we've said carries over to generating game animations too,
which is a massive, usually I feel like, I don't know, if do you guys have a gaming program at UT?
We teach gaming. Like, I teach an interactive class. I mean, it's basically like Unreal 101,
right?
But
it's all Unreal.
People have not recently, but like pre-COVID, when the Vicon studio was open, people, they would ask, hey, or if they were taking both classes at the same time, they'd be like, hey, can I use the system to generate like bespoke animations for my game? And it was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why we can do that with the Rokoko stuff.
Yeah. Here's another question from Evan, which I think we might have something like this, but they're asking if there's a demo curriculum. I don't know if there's like a particular, where you talk about Rokoko. Sure. I don't know if there's, or even just like to look at a program at UT that involves, like, what is the name of that program maybe, and they can look it up.
Available. So there is one that Epic has made publicly available. And that is actually adapted from my curriculum at UT. So I gave it to them and they sort of retooled it a little bit, changed some of the wording. But it was the class that I taught for 6 years before I took a break. So that one is out there. Anytime you see motion capture referred to in that, depending on what the situation was, we were either using the Rokoko suit or the Vicon system. Right. So I mean, like, it's relatively interchangeable. So I can make sure y'all, that link is posted.
We'll grab it and we'll put it in the video, in the YouTube video or whatever, because I think that would be cool to check out, because again, I think it's as an educator, I can understand also the a new system that you don't know, you kind of want to see that, make sure that it's been that it works and everything.
Well, there's one thing. Oh, sorry, I got too excited there. Knocked my headphones off. There's one thing that I mean, if you don't mind, I'll screen share something real quick.
I would love. Yeah, I know you were talking about that. Yeah, that would be cool.
So, I think they'll need to enable screen share.
Oh yeah, let me. Okay, let me see how.
So while Sam's doing that, I'll just give a little bit of an explainer for people. So one of my favorite projects that I do at UT is we take motion capture data from a pre-existing film. So like what we did was a couple years ago, an actor friend of mine came in, we put the suit on, and they redid both characters from the Voight-Kampff interrogation scene in the original Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And what I did for my students to get them, these are all filmmakers, like I said, traditional filmmakers, trying to understand on a broad overview of how to do this, was I gave them just the edited motion that synced up perfectly to the audio in the film. So both characters have their actions. There's no lip sync because we weren't doing facial performance capture. I just told them, to use simple characters. Since some students have gone and used faceware and metahumans and like fully lip synced everything, it's been crazy. But what I want to show you today is what you can sort of, as educators, what you can generate just from one, recording session,
right,
using a previously existing piece of film.
Yeah.
You don't have to use a previous, you could use anything you want. Yeah.
So I made you a co-host. I don't know if that allows you to, maybe you can, but yeah, I think
it should work now.
I think also that's another thing that's always cool, is like, that I love about the suit in general, is just, it's like, oh, I did something wrong on this take. I just hop back in the suit and I do it again. Like, or I can do 25 takes again, all by myself. And you're like, okay, I need to make some interesting mocap for a student. Let me just, it's not a big, okay, maybe I got to rent the lab and make sure the lab tech is there, make sure my key card is working for that building. And it's like, it gets you, anything gets you to that mocap result faster is fun. Anyway, yeah, this looks cool. So this is all Unreal.
Yeah, so this is all Unreal, and I'm just gonna scrub through. For all our sanity's sake, I won't play the full 3-minute scene. Also because it's edited to basically show off the fact that 20-something students were all given this. And like I said, everything's synced together. So
cool.
What you can see here is as we sort of go through, they're all given the animation, right? And these are just on the default Unreal mannequins. So then they basically have to cut the scene together. So you're going to see a bunch of different art direction styles here. But essentially what happens is we just give this to them raw. And as filmmakers, they have to figure out how to put it together. And 95% of students in this class, and by the way, this is just week 5 of our semester.
Right.
More than 95% of students have never touched Unreal, have never used a 3D program in their life, like whether it's Maya or anything like that. They are like brand new to this technology. So a lot of them do have practical camera experience and lighting experience, so they bring that to bear. But in terms of the CG world or the digital world, these people are all new. And this is the level that they can retarget animations, they can light things, they can build out sets, they can edit in sequencers. Some of them kick it out to Resolve to do other things. But like if we go through here, you know, these students are doing this. You're seeing a variety of different styles here. They're coming up with this so quickly, you know, and what it allows them to do, and I'll stop sharing now because it does get a little bit repetitive.
No, it's cool. Keep it. I want to.
Okay, yeah.
Keep it running.
I'll put it back up. I'll put it back up. What it allows them to do, though, you know, which is so fantastic, is it really allows them to explore this space as a filmmaker, right? With a capital F, filmmaker. They are exploring it not as a technician. Right. They're exploring it as a narrative storyteller, right? And they're able to go in and make some choices. And, you know, I'll be very clear here. To me, this does a lot of the time seem like baby's first Unreal, but I like throwing people into the deep end. I don't want to just get, you know, by week 5, I don't want to still be doing 3-point lighting exercises.
Right.
Because they can do that whenever they want. And quite frankly, every shot in their film is an opportunity to train on that and relearn on lighting principles and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get people out of the gate running, right? We're not going from crawling to walking to running. We're going from getting popped out to running a marathon.
Right. Which is now possible and wasn't
which is now possible.
10 years ago, but now it really, right.
I mean, I'd wager to say it wasn't even possible 5 years ago. Like, you know, I really don't.
Well,
like,
right. And now, especially with they could do this whole thing with metahumans now.
And that's the thing. So this is from 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, in time for this presentation, I did not get the clearances and all the time to put together a new reel, but we do this now with metahumans.
Yeah.
Like, so this is done with metahumans. So I can show you one of the metahuman shorts.
Yeah.
This will just take 2 seconds to pull up because I have it over here in another
just as
tab.
I mean, I think as well, just as a comment on this thing that you're showing us, it's like, I think I would imagine, not being an educator, but having been a student, any feeling of ownership that you can have as like a student.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can, like, that's the fun thing I think about mocap usually, is that animating something by hand, like, that is going to be a slog. But if it's fun, and then not only fun, but I get to make decisions about how I'm going to do something, and now I'm like really fired up, like, that's the goal. As an educator, I would imagine you want someone who's going to be like, look at this thing I made, like showing their friends, you know. And when you're working on one scene for a semester and you're like, okay, this is cool, I'm doing substance beta, and they're like, this is rad, but also like, I wish I had made this a little bit more mine, and all these students are the same, you know. These are all different. That's so cool. I think just as a student, it would be awesome to have that freedom.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the ownership comment. It's like they have to feel happy and proud of what they've done. And I think the further, you know, obviously there's going to be some people, and I don't want to say that doesn't exist with technical learning. So like when I make the comment about the reel of tech demos, it's like that is definitely useful for a certain subset of the population that want to be technical, and that is valid. And I'm not disparaging that at all. What I'm saying though is if you want to be a storyteller, you need to show me that you can tell a story with this technology. Like if you want to be a filmmaker, like who is a lead creative, like a director, for example, or even a DP, or even a gaffer. Like, I mean, honestly, like if you're going to sculpt the light with the DP, like I want to see that represented in service of a narrative, right? So I have this pulled up right now. This is from one of a student that I had who's, interestingly enough, not a film student, it's a fine arts student who's taken a cross-listed class. His name's Liam. Just check. I mean, like, I know Zoom's a little bit laggy, but you saw the really simplified versions before. I mean, this is what he's choosing to do with the scene right now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is metahumans with faceware, like, I mean, so everyone does it differently. Like, I love the opening shot out here, which just is like, I mean, there's so much depth in the frame. There's foreground, middle ground, background, it's all lit. This is using a gaming PC too. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. And is this student's work? It really is all,
100% student. And, he's using all assets that are free or Quixel mega scans.
Yeah. Right.
He spent $0 on this, and it's pretty incredible.
That's great.
Like, I mean, and this is something like, he actually did this for his final, I believe, like this was almost the final version of his project. Like, I mean, he only spent it I mean, I can't imagine how many hours he spent on it. I can tell you it wasn't that much because this is all real time.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a semester long project. So even furthermore, when you see stuff like this, you're basically just like, why wouldn't the assignment be a film? Over the course of a semester? Like, I really think unless the course is about simulations and the course is about, really technical art, like, I feel like we're doing a disservice to our students if we do not encourage them to sort of take that leap forward and actually integrate this into the storytelling that they're wanting to do. And because this is by far, this is the level of quality we're getting now.
Right. And this is
why I show the second
with a student. And it's all also, I mean, all this stuff, Rokoko and other inertial performance capture, but cheaper, available mocap systems have been coming up. And it's been like, one thing that's been tough about Rokoko is not having characters, that it's difficult to have facial capture characters. And then like all this stuff is, Unity is investing in this.
With Ziva and stuff.
Yeah. And then you have metahumans and it's really top notch, triple A quality models that are now accessible for students. And it all kind of, the nice thing is it's all happening a little bit at the same time, just in the last 2 years. With metahumans, especially.
Well, the metahuman, I mean, the faceware stuff with metahuman, and even if any of you have heard of that company, FaceGood, I mean, like, incredible stuff that is literally happening on consumer level machines that looks like millions of dollars were spent. I'll share just one more thing really quick,
please,
to show you sort of how I'm using Rokoko personally right now. So I'm working on a short film that takes place completely inside of a space shuttle. So it's a very cramped environment. I'm going to share my screen here again real quick.
Yeah, and we're going to be also, everyone, we're going to do a live demo in like a couple 5-10 minutes. Cool. So we'll go through some stuff too.
So this is a project I'm working on now. I'm actually going to show an earlier version, just so you can see. These are some look dev, some sort of like a reel of look dev that we're doing. And right now I have 0 character animation beyond a control rig movement that I've done for the head.
Yeah.
All right. So you can just see I put the body in. I've just done some really simple animation. I've done the eye controls to blink, just looking around. This is all real time, by the way, in Unreal 4. So I haven't even switched this over to 5. In fact, I'm going to finish this project in 4. All this stuff's there, but there, there's something missing. This seems like previs to me. Like, this is very technical previs. I'm blocking out the shots, doing really simple motion. So then the next iteration of this, though, is adding in body motion, like legitimate body motion with Rokoko. So I'm actually, to emulate 0G, I'm actually slowing down the playback of the animation take.
Cool.
And then I'm able to bring that into Marvelous Designer and do a cloth sim on top of it. So you can see like the cloth moving a little bit on the jumpsuit. And even this subtle level of animation brings this scene to life in ways that it was not before. But here's the other thing. You know how long it took to do this? 5 minutes. Right. If I had to do this by hand, I don't know. For somebody like me, weeks, because I'm just not a character anymore.
Or just not at all, because I can't animate.
Exactly. I wouldn't have even attempted it. I would have just left it how it was before. And I would have done what I do in the past where I'm like, oh, I guess I got to hire somebody to come in and, actually do this. So it saves you time. It saves you money. But then unlike the triangle where it's like you have to sacrifice something, even with the time and money saved, the quality is not compromised.
Right.
That's the thing that's incredible. Right.
Yeah. And it's also, you play within the sandbox of the tool, right, of what it can do. And again, like, not to disparage Vicon, like there's things Vicon can do that Rokoko can't do, but you're, especially in a scene, like there's so many instances where just, even just I'm too intimidated to hand animate an idol, but to like just this on the corner of a character is like, there's so much that you can do with the tool that will enhance the scene with gloves, especially. And
I should say I do have the gloves, and that was another thing where it's like, push comes to shove, I would have felt I could use control rig to pose things, but I never felt good about hand poses. Like ever. And that is, I've noticed how in the past I used to avoid showing hands consciously.
Right. Totally.
In the stuff I was creating. And now I don't even worry about it because it's sort of second nature. But I do see a question here, and it's the same Vicon Rokoko or Optitrack Rokoko. Like Unreal versus Unity. I work for Epic. I love working for Epic. I think competition's good though.
That's
like my thing is like, I'm happy that there's multiple options out there for people, because the reason I gravitated to Unreal is because of my film background. I don't have a programming background, but over the course of almost 8 years now, I would consider very proficient at Blueprint. So, that's why it has now become my software of choice, which is why I would, choose to work at a place like Epic. But, there's some things that other softwares are going to be better suited for. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, for a creator, there's no such thing as competition. Like, because you're not associated with them. Like, you don't care. You just want to use whatever tool or combinations of tools will get you to where you need to go. Well, and the more competition we have, the more democratized things are going to get. So that's how I feel.
I'm like an Unreal person too. But all these things that Unity has had some news, recently. It's acquired Weta and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's great. I don't care if I don't use it or not, but hopefully it pushes Unreal to be better. And then we're all, you don't want just Unreal to be the only provider. And that competition is really good in a creative space, I think. So
that's great. Yeah, it really leads to democratization. I think if y'all hadn't been doing what you were doing with your pricing at Rokoko and stuff, we wouldn't see this level of aggressive change in the marketplace.
Totally. Right.
Where we're starting to notice other brands come down in price to try to, meet in the middle. But, my thing too, and I'll go, this will be the last thing I'll say just about the accessibility is, ultimately, to me, the things that will never be democratized about this medium has nothing to do with the hardware software, because that will come. It is I hate to say this, I'm not trying to be a downer, but this is something we all have to think about. It is the performance itself though. No matter how good the software is, no matter how good the hardware is, if the source is not adequate, doesn't matter. So what I like to talk about and sort of do as a closing point for any time I talk about this technology is invest the same amount of time and energy into forming relationships with good performers as you do with the software that you're using and the hardware that you're using, because unless you're going to be that character animator, and then what we're talking about right now is irrelevant, unless you're going to be that person who has total complete control through your hands, literally, like it is going to be still a collaboration, right? And so you can't just expect anybody to put on a suit. I'll give you one funny example, and then I promise I'll shut up. I did a thing with the dance team at UT, or not dance team, the fine arts dance students at UT. So not like cheerleaders, or like the people who do like interpretive dance, all this sort of stuff. We put a suit on them. We had them do like a 3-minute thing. It was kind of incredible. We split it up. We segmented the animation so it was recursive sort of on itself.
Cool.
So you saw the trails. I did that for a test that I just did walking around. And I did the same thing. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, this really showcases how somebody like this dancer is in complete control of every single aspect of their body. It is precise. It is graceful. It is haphazard when need be, but there's the level of control. When I watch myself just walk around a room, I'm like, oh my God, I'm awkward. Like, I'm not meant to be on camera. Like, I just don't have that presence. And that's something that makes me a little bit sad, because I don't get that much mileage of myself getting in the suit. But at the same time though, I've learned in a way, it's like, so I get to focus on directing now. I really get to think about how I can make this performance live through the hardware and software, and thus bring my story to life. Right. So while that is one thing that is potentially not democratized in a way that the rest of this is, it's something that as a creator, you can make a goal, it forces you to collaborate. It forces you to meet people. And I think ultimately, that's what we should all be talking about as well, is how all of these things inherently, motion picture is a collaborative art form.
Yeah.
Right. And the more open we can be about that, the better. And I'm telling you too, especially the indie people here, independent filmmakers, students, if you get access to a suit and you go to an actor that you might have seen somewhere locally, or you're maybe really impressed with, it is going to be very rare for them not to take you up on that opportunity to get to do motion capture performances.
It's a good resume builder, and a lot of actors, I think, are interested in doing it. And also, fortunately, again, with the suits, at least, like, there's not as much with some other suits that, it can be tough for an actor, I think, sometimes when you're constantly doing calibrations or something like that, and you're like, okay, don't move, and okay, get ready. And I mean, they can do that too, but it's easier when it's nice when you can just put someone in a suit and say go. And but yeah, everything you're saying, I so agree with. There's nothing you learn faster than like how much of a talent acting is.
I know. Yeah,
you getting in the suit and being like, okay, I'm whatever. I'm gonna try and like I'm always doing boxing.
Right. Yeah, I do that too. I've totally done shadow boxing and trying to line it up, and I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna use that.
Doesn't look good. I'm not a boxer.
Yeah. No, it's super cool. But once again, I really appreciate that y'all letting me talk to y'all about this. I hope it was insightful for people. Please feel free to reach me out. I'm on LinkedIn. You can follow me there, reach out anytime you want. I'm very happy, especially if you're an educator and you just, you want to talk about a curriculum, because I've been in this nice position where I'm going into my 8th year of doing this. So, as far as virtual production in schools are concerned, that puts me at sort of a kind of a veteran status here in terms of, so I'm always happy to talk about this stuff.
That's awesome. And we will put links to your website, which is deepakchetty.com, but also, the UT at Austin links and everything. And it's cool that you're willing to do that, because it's like a community, and it's so awesome when you reach out to someone and they're like, yeah, well, I'm interested. Let's talk about it. Like, let's do it. I'm willing to help you out. And that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deepak, for coming and doing this. This is a blast for me. I loved it.
Thank you so much.
And and so we're gonna do a little bit of a demo right now. I'm just gonna hop into Unreal really quickly.
Awesome.
I think you might have to go, but
I have to jet. So it was nice seeing everybody. Thanks so much again, y'all. It was great. And please be in touch if you have any questions.
Awesome. We'll have all the links, everyone. So thank you so much, Deepak.
Thanks so much. See you later.
See you soon. Yeah. Okay, super cool. That was a lot of fun. Well, everyone who's still here, let's just do a quick little demo of the tech. I'm not going to keep you guys that much longer because we've already been at it, but I'll just trust that my screen is sharing properly. We're just gonna quickly go in and do a little real mocap test. So I'm wearing a Rokoko Smartsuit Pro II. This is a new version of the suit we just came out with, and it is powered by. It allows you to power not only the suit, but also the gloves on a single little portable battery. So I have a little battery here that's in my pocket. And so this is a couple pieces of tech, right? I'm wearing a suit, but then we also have the smart gloves that we sell, which are a game changer for motion capture, because once you start using gloves, it's very apparent how much fingers and hands movement really adds to a performance. So it's hard to go back. But one of the nice things about Rokoko is we do all these things and it's in a single system. And we're also going to get some facial motion capture set up that we have a solution for. And we're going to stream it all live into a MetaHuman just to show you how easy it is. So again, I'm here. I got my suit on. I'm just going to plug in to my little battery. Got gloves. There's a little head strap as well that's under my beanie here. There's a head sensor. So this is the Rokoko software here, and you can see not everything looks right, and we just need to do a quick little calibration. But the suit, as soon as I plug it in, it remembers the Wi-Fi setup that I had. I've got a little router right here, so I can get really good data. We just have one calibration pose that's called a straight pose that I do. And there we go. We are now, ready to record mocap. But let's also add in some facial mocap. So our facial mocap runs off the Apple AR kit, which is kind of a middle of the line system. It's great in that it all works together with our stuff, and it is high quality enough that I've gotten really emotive performances. So it just runs off of an iPhone 10 or higher, an iPhone with a true depth camera. And as soon as we open up our app, which is a free little app on our iPhone, we just get a little notification here. I'm going to hit connect. I'm going to hit connect on my app. Oh, and then there we go. A face pops up. So I'm going to, usually when I do this, I just put it right on my desk, right? And I'll move the iPhone into position here. Like that. There we go. So it's just right under the camera. You can see it's got some distance, so you can just put it up on a desk. Drag my face onto my character. Hey. And we might just need to repower the suit, which happens from time to time. But again, the nice thing is that it's not like, you know, you got to repower the suit. That's one thing. You got to get in touch with the tech to figure out how to plug in all the cameras. That can be a very different proposition. So we're going to let this kick in, and then we're going to jump into a little Unreal scene and stream this mocap in live in a second. So we're just going to let this guy. I'm also doing a lot on this computer right now. I got Unreal, we're streaming Zoom. So of course, maybe it'll decide to misbehave, in which case we'll just use pre-recorded assets. But you can see the face cap is a lot of fun. There we go. So we're just going to do another calibration pose. 3, 2, 1, stand still. And now we have full performance capture that anyone can get up and set up and use. And again, this was really easy to do. And now I can record a ton of scenes. And yeah, you know, the fingers just add so much, you realize very quickly, you know, to the performance. Because even if you're doing an idle or something, it's just like tapping, you know, scratching. The fingers end up adding so much. Okay, so we've got full performance motion capture set up. It's ready to go. We have our live streaming plugin on. So this is an integration. We have integrations and plugins that are free. They're part of the Rokoko software. There's a subscription to get access to them, but then the plugins themselves are free, and you can add them to all these different software suites. We have Unreal, Unity, Motion Builder, Maya, Cartoon Animator, Blender, Cinema 4D. We got everything. Makes it easy. And this is something that kind of makes us unique, as well as all of these integrations and the work we've put into these plugins. But I'm going to turn on my Unreal Engine. And now if we pop into Unreal, so I've just got a basic scene set up here with a metahuman. These are all free characters that Epic has released. Super high detail, little tiny hairs on the cheeks and everything. Kind of freaky when you do that, but amazing characters, and again, all free, which really is incredible. So I've already got this set up. We actually have a bunch of free project files that are set up that you can go check out a metahuman with Rokoko mocap all set up for you. But if we just hit play, we're already running. I'll hit eject to just go and get on my camera here. And yeah, so this is all running in real time. I normally wouldn't be doing this with as many other programs open as I have open, right? But I use this system to do VTubing sometimes and stuff. And I also loaded in this little environment here. So that's, you know, a little bit of a drain, but yeah, you know, that was that easy to kind of set up, which I think is really valuable to just look at how accessible this can be for a student. And again, like, this is something that is not rocket science anymore. And it was 5-10 years ago. It wasn't even financially accessible back then, much less, in terms of the specialized skill sets you needed. Now you can teach yourself on YouTube how to do all of this. It can be integrated, I think, into educational programs. And like Deepak was saying, that idea of ownership and what a student can achieve on their own is just like, it's so cool. As a former student, I wish that we had this stuff. So here's just another camera angle show you some of the detail on these, again, free, right, models. And there's a little lag or whatever, but you know, just absolutely incredible what you can do now for free. Oh God. The aliens. Let's go back to our main camera here. And again, you know, this is all real time, right? So the fun thing about Unreal, and this is not Unreal 5, this is Unreal 4, but you know, because it's all in real time, let's go and actually set up some fire already. But you know, this is all just, you can really start playing, and it's all real time. You don't have to worry about you know, having the resources to do it. You know, computing power, it doesn't take as much anymore, but now we have like a badass flame scene, right? And the amount of creativity you can have with this stuff is just so cool, I think. So I'm just gonna go grab, I don't know if this, maybe this hasn't been in view the whole time, but here's my camera. Is that fire? And yeah, so this is really fun stuff to play around with. And I think as a student, you would just be, man, it's you'd be in heaven. See if I can get some of this crazy fire in the scene. I mean, how, you know, how cool is this? And again, just something that would not be available just a few years ago. So, you know, with that, I'm going to say thank you everyone so much for attending. Again, we're going to have all of this will be on demand on YouTube. So we're going to have all the links and everything that'll be there. We also have a Rokoko Discord, which you can hop on to. We'll have a link to join that in the description below, but it's discord.gg/Rokoko. We have an awesome community that is always there to help out, or if you have questions about your workflow. You can also reach out on our website. There's links, pop-ups to book a live demo with one of our team members. If you have questions about how to integrate Rokoko tech into your program, or just you're interested in it as an individual, it's great to be able to get online, like ask questions of a human being, get a demo of the tech in the program that you use. And so you can find that at rokoko.com. And the last thing I'll say is that we're constantly also running contests and animation challenges and stuff. So you can find those links. You know, we have an Instagram that's a lot of fun. We share news about that stuff on the Instagram. And we also do a live stream every Thursday at 11 a.m. PST on YouTube that I do, Rokoko Office Hours. And so you can come on tomorrow, and we usually make some free mocap and give it out to the community, and it's a lot of fun. So again, thank you everyone for joining. We're going to sign off here, but hopefully we'll see you in the Discord or in, you know, or on YouTube. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye. If I can figure out how to, okay.